Welcome to our Morning Throners podcast. I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Glow.
And I'm Kyle.
We're the fucking Morning Throners. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Morning Throners podcast. Here we are, Nelson, Jeff, Kyle, and Glow, talking Bran and the beginning of it all. Nels?
So, just a fair warning, we already recorded this, and one of us, who will remain unnamed, lost the recording.
You can
so
just say it. It's like
so this is a re-record. But I think the first thing we said last time was I let you guys know that when George R. R. Martin had the idea to write all of Game of Thrones, this was his first. He was in the middle of writing some sci-fi fantasy space book, or some sci-fi space book, and he said this chapter came to his mind. Bran in the summer snows with the direwolf pups is the first thing. The first thing that made him want to write this book. And then he said he wrote this chapter, and then he wrote the next chapter, and he just kept writing. And he came back and wrote the prologue way later. But this is where it all started.
And then he stopped.
After dance for a long time. Hopefully he comes back to it, though.
It really makes you think about how much of a weirdo George R. R. Martin is. To just have a strange idea about a boy.
Well, it makes you think, I wonder how important this chapter is later, and, once we get the end of the series, if, a lot of things are going to make sense in this chapter. But we'll start at the beginning. Great place to start. And we get, they're at the beheading for who Bran originally thinks is a wildling, because that's what Rob says. It's a wildling sworn to Mance Rayder. But we get that Bran is only 7, and they're at this beheading, and it's, his first time ever seeing a guy beheaded.
Yeah, it's, Can you just imagine that for a second? Being a second grader and having to watch someone get their head chopped off? It's normal. And you're expected as a son to just watch it and not think of anything of it because winter's coming.
My sister's 9 and she can barely take a piss without a nightlight. So that just tells you. And this kid's 7 watching somebody get their head snipped.
And not flinching.
Yeah, it's crazy. So let's get a little picture of what we got. We got Bran with his brother Rob, half-brother John, and a group of 20 Stark men, including his father, who are there to get this guy beheaded. And we find out that the guy, well, we don't find out, but we can assume, based on the description, that this guy has missing 2 ears and a finger from frostbite, that he is
Gerard.
Gerard.
Yeah,
the guy.
from
Garrod.
Yeah,
Garrod?
Gerard,
Gerard,
it's
whatever.
It's a hard G. I looked it up.
The only guy who makes it out of the
Garrod.
prologue alive.
It would be Garrod then. It's a hard.
I thought that was a J.
Garrod?
Jared is J. Jared is J.
Yeah.
My brother's name is Jared, and it's spelled with a J.
Garrod.
Yeah, but
Hard
my
G
cousin's
would be
name is
Garrett.
Jeff, and it's spelled with a G.
Yeah, well, he's a fucking
Yeah, but he's
nerd.
got a soft G.
He's
No,
English.
everybody knows.
Whatever, it doesn't
G-off.
matter. It's the freaking guy from the prologue. He's dead now anyway. He got his head snipped. Why are we
Everybody knows if you're going to spell the name Jeff, you spell it with J. And it better
And
be
with an O in there, too. You gotta throw an O in there.
I agree with Glow. Geoff. Great way to spell Jeff.
You're idiots.
All right. So, he gets basically first part of this chapter. He gets his head snipped, and at the time when he gets his head snipped, he thinks that it's a wildling, and the only thing that Bran knows about wildlings is what Old Man, the storyteller in Winterfell, tells him. And the quote I have from what he remembers about wildlings is, "The wildlings were cruel men," she said, "slavers and slayers and thieves. They consorted with giants and ghouls, stole children in the dead of night, and drank blood from polished horns. And their women lay with others in the long night to sire terrible half-human children." I asked you this in the first recording, Kyle. What do you think of this?
I think it's probably just folklore, local legend kind of thing. Obviously exaggerated.
But so wouldn't these people who live north of in the northern part know something? They have some knowledge.
What do you mean? People at the wall or people north of the wall?
Winterfell's the closest big city to the wall. Don't you think they would know about the people, best about the people who live north
and you're
of
right.
it?
Yeah,
I
but
guess-
all they know is
but
the
I mean-
rapers and reavers coming and attacking them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to know the good people. That's for sure. Yeah, you're right. But
and I guess Bran knows about them isn't from reputable sources. It's from
old
his
man.
storytelling.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I guess you got to be pretty hard to live north of the wall, but doesn't make them rapists, right?
Yeah, but we don't. There's no saying that they're not rapists. Right now, we don't really
there's
know.
good and bad people in all types.
Something else that's. Do you think the wildlings take record of their own histories? Do you think someone's up there like writing books? They don't give a shit.
I think it's all word of mouth.
Probably not.
Yeah, so there's no straight accounts from anything north of the wall. You know what I mean?
Well, even most of the realms seems like they don't have great accounts of anything.
Can any of them?
It's kind of all like passed down stories.
At least there's a maester everywhere whose job is to write it down.
Maybe like in recent history, but
Yeah, maybe. Did we gloss over that the first mention of Mance Rayder? Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah. So I said I did mention that Rob thought he was a wildling sworn to Mance Rayder, but yeah, this is the first mention we get of him. He seems to be like the wildling leader, and that's kind of all we know. And one thing I noticed, because I read this just before the podcast, so this is like the fourth time I've read this chapter in the past 2 months, but when Bran sees the guy, he's like, he was dressed like a Night's Watchman, but his clothes were like greasy and torn. So he's like, he couldn't have been, and just assumes he's a night.
A wildling.
Just kind of like discards that thought until Ned comes up later and says, "Oh no, that's what he was."
Yeah.
So then we get another character, Theon, who we find out is Ned Stark's ward.
19.
He's 19, so he's older than Robin and John, who I think
by 5 years.
14.
With like 14. Yeah.
See.
Yep. So Theon, and he's basically just like, I guess like the squire for Ned. They call him his ward, but it seems like he's doing squire duties here. He brings him the sword.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, does Ned have a squire?
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
I think Ward might be like an older name for a squire. Like you go from squire to being a ward, maybe.
Well, I think ward is just like what they call people who like live at their castles. Like we'll talk about in the next chapter. Ned warded and fostered. He was a ward for Jon Arryn. He fostered at the Eyrie.
But I'm saying like maybe when they were younger, him and Robert were squires, and then as they got older, they referred to him as wards. I don't know.
I got you. So the reason Theon's there is he brings Ned his sword, which is a huge Valyrian steel sword, ice. And it's as tall as Rob, who's a 14-year-old boy, and they say wide across as a man's hand.
Yeah, but
it's unbelievable.
Is Rob like Nelson tall or like me tall?
Probably average tall. Somewhere in between.
He's definitely like 5'9", 5'10".
As a 14-year-old?
Yeah.
So he's already taller than me then. Cool.
He's almost
tall for a 14-year-old.
Yeah. Nah, he's almost a man grown. It's freshman year. You don't get all right, maybe like 5'8". I mean, I don't know.
I was like barely 6 foot freshman year.
I'm lucky if I'm that now.
All right, you're
right.
late
Seriously.
Whatever, still a big sword.
Who gives a fuck? It's almost 6 feet tall.
At least 5 feet tall, which is, even if it's 5 feet tall, it's a huge sword.
Yeah.
So like, how does he carry that into battle?
Got it on his back.
He couldn't.
On his back.
Yeah, and never bring it out. It's just sitting there as a back armor.
Yeah, because I guess you like can't. If it's 5 feet tall, the handle's above your head, and then like you'd have to be able to extend your arms 5 feet above your head to pull that puppy out.
Yeah, that sword is strictly for chopping heads.
Yeah, I guess it seems like a waste to have a sword that awesome that you only use for chopping off heads.
I mean, it's just so long. That's like the longest longsword ever.
Yeah,
intimidation
be that
factor.
quick with it.
It's an extra long sword.
Yeah. All right, so the next thing we get is the little description or contrast, I guess, between Rob and John, and how they're like really good friends and like buddies, they like kind of, at least on this matter, have different views and like physically are like very different. They say Rob is fair and quick, and John is dark and strong.
No,
or
John's
other way
quick.
Around. John's quick, Rob's strong, but yeah, Rob is fair and John's dark. They say Rob has all the coloring of his mother, so like kind of reddish hair, blue eyes, but John has like dark gray eyes, almost black, and he looks more like a Stark than Rob.
His eyes miss almost nothing, or something like that.
John's eyes miss almost nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're talking about the guy and how he died, and Rob says that he died
brave.
He died brave, and John says that he died scared. And then they ride off ahead to like race to the bridge, but Bran's riding a pony, so he can't keep up.
Wait,
and that's when.
Is that the right way? You said John said he died scared?
Yeah, John said he died scared. Yeah. John definitely said scared.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, you're right. No, it was not courage. One was dead of fear. You could see it in his eyes, Stark. Yeah.
Yeah, so Rob thinks he died brave, and John says no, he was afraid. You could see it in his
But he
eyes, and
wasn't.
that's when they
He
write
wasn't
off.
afraid of the beheading necessarily.
Yeah, and we kind of get a little bit more of that next chapter too when we hear Ned talking about it to Kat. So we'll talk about it then. But yeah, so basically this is when they write off, and this is when Bran starts talking to Ned, and we get some of those quotes from Ned. You wanna read those, Jeff?
So is this when Bran? We want to start with Bran thought about can a man still be brave if he's afraid? That's the conversation with his dad.
Yeah.
And then this is one of Ned's great lines: is that is the only time a man can be brave. And then in truth, the man was an oathbreaker, deserted from the Night's Watch. No man is more dangerous. They get really scared about deserters because at that point they know they're marked for death, so they'll kill anybody, steal anything, and just kind of.
Yeah. It's like the worst crime, so there's no worse punishment. So, yeah, this is when we get one of my favorite Ned Stark quotes.
All right, someone say it in a Bean accent.
The blood of the first man. Oh God. The blood of the first man still flows in the veins of the Starks, and we hold to belief that the man who passes his sentence should swing the sword. If you would take a man's life, you owe it to him to look into his eyes and hear his final words. And if you cannot bear to do that, then perhaps that man does not deserve to die.
Quick sidebar. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Glow's Ned Stark voice sounds an awful lot like his Maekar Targaryen voice.
They're the same. They're both very honorable men, and there's not a lot of difference in voices in this time.
From a couple podcasts back.
I love the video of Sophie Turner and Maisie Williams doing like
Sean
Ned
Bean.
Bean. Yeah, Sean Bean. The funniest shit. I love.
One does
Maisie
not
Williams.
simply cut a man's head off.
All right. Yeah, Boromir. All right, so I brought this up to you guys, and you guys all disagreed with me last time. We don't actually get Ned hearing this guy's last words in this chapter. They say like some words were like the men gathered and some words were spoken, but like and
yeah,
then
we don't hear any of the
What
words that he
I
said.
disagreed with you about there. Like, what was I?
Well, you guys were saying that even though it wasn't like explicitly in the chapter, that part of the men talking was Ned asking the guy his like final words. Because I was like, you can't just tell Bran this, but then not do it.
No, I
is what
definitely
it
would
seems
think that he asked him his final words.
I know, and I'm saying it's not in the chapter.
Yeah, but like Bran's
We don't
not
get
close
any
enough
of the-
to hear it.
We don't get any of the dialogue between the two
And
people.
Bran does say that the men talk for a while, but like afterwards he didn't remember anything.
Yeah,
of what was
I mean,
said.
I think they had a whole conversation about it, but Ned's a cold-hearted bitch. He doesn't give a shit what he had to say.
He's got kill a
Yeah.
man. He's got.
He deserted. He's gone.
Yeah. So and then kind of going off the last quote, we get the other one that says, "A ruler who hides behind paid executioners soon forgets what death is," and we kind of see this like throughout the books that like the people like the Starks are the only ones that kill people themselves that I can remember. And
I mean, probably the what's it called? The Kraken people. I can't think of their name.
Possibly Daenerys.
She burns them. That's not really swinging a sword.
guys, also remember Kyle hasn't read these books yet.
Fuck.
But yeah,
She
so it
burns him
seems
with
like
a dragon. I saw that. Don't worry.
Yeah, so
he
got
it.
He got
We'll
it.
just go with that. Yeah.
we recorded 2 podcasts on some short stories before this, Kyle. And Glow's first podcast, Glow spoiled something for Jeff.
It was so minute though.
So get ready for it.
Whatever. I mean, it's already like partly spoiled to some degree, right? Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully Glow figures it out here soon.
No, it's fine. Like I said, I haven't been avoiding it. I mean, I haven't searched it out either. But
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right,
we'll
going
keep going.
on. The
keep
two
going.
brothers start racing off, right? Rob and John.
Well, they've already raced off because
Oh,
Bran's
okay.
talking to Ned. This is when John comes back and he's like, "Yo, guys, come look what we got."
Right.
So we got real quick. I'm gonna tell people who these characters are. We got Jory, who is the steward, and we got Hullen, who is the
Isn't
master
he head of the
horse.
guard? Sure.
Yeah, but I think he's a steward too, like Lord Steward, Captain of the
Okay.
Guards, and Lord Steward. Yeah, so Jory and Theon walk up to Rob, and they're like terrified. They're like, "Get away from it!" And I don't think they see the pup in his arms. They see the huge
big
dead
one, yeah.
direwolf in the snow. And like, there's all this commotion, and Jory even pulls his sword out, and Bran is just like super excited to find out what's going on. But he says Ned makes him get off his horse and walk from the bridge, so they're not in the snow. And they get over and they see that Rob is holding a little direwolf pup.
Sage.
Direwolf pup.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a direwolf pup.
And Brandon's like kind of hesitant at first and like goes up to like barely give it a pet. And all of a sudden, John just sticks one right in his arms. And Theon says that there hasn't been a direwolf pup direwolf at all south of the wall in 200 years. And John's like, well, there's one here now.
Open big discussion about how this fucking wolf got down there, or
was it there the whole time? I think we cover it in the post.
We
without
definitely
Kyle.
have talked about that though last time for sure.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit.
Kyle, do you have any ideas of how he got over?
I mean, there's really two options. Either it's been there, or it snuck through the wall, or I guess somebody else brought it through the wall. But
basically, those are three options.
Yeah, I mean, if it snuck through the wall, what's that mean for the wall, though? Right? Maybe it's crumbling.
We never really talked about a wall person carrying it over as a pup, did we? Or I guess.
No,
You know
we
what I
didn't,
mean?
we
What do you
didn't talk about that. No, for sure.
Like
this-
40 years ago, somebody brought a pup.
this pup just like wandered up to the wall, and this guy took him in, and then like let him loose, and
Then he became a direwolf, so he's like, "Fuck, get out of here."
yeah,
Yeah, like
or just said like
that probably
fuck
makes
it.
the most sense.
like
out of
people with
everything we've talked about
alligators,
so far.
right? You know, you just let it free eventually because
What?
it's too
People
big.
take baby
Yeah,
alligators.
yeah, they do.
Yeah, or like Florida has like.
Have you
a
ever
huge
read about
snake
Florida
problem.
Man?
They have a
Florida
huge
Man has
I
snake-
know
some
there's-
crazy stories with alligators.
They got like a python problem. They're not native. It's because people get them and they get too big and they let them go. And then now they like do great.
Jesus,
Yeah, like they eat your dog and shit.
not my dog.
Your dog would shit on a python.
Maybe your dog. Maybe Kyle's dog. 'cause
It would
looks like a
definitely
rat.
mine, but I mean, like, yeah, there's one of them here, kind of.
Yeah, I see his pain. So Ned, this is when Ned walks up and is saying that like a direwolf south of the wall is a bad sign, which is kind of weird considering that it's the sigil of the Stark.
House Stark.
Yeah,
Like, wouldn't this be a good sign?
or maybe just a Stark is always a bad sign. You never want to see a Stark.
I
Even
guess.
when you are one.
So Ned says it's just Ned is like not phased at all. He's like, it's just a dead. Well, Bran says he seems a little phased, but what he's saying is it's just a dead animal, nothing to like worry about. And then he asks like, do we know what killed it? And Rob is like real proud. He's like, oh, I know what killed it. There's an antler under its chin or whatever. Ned pulls it out and holds it up, and everybody gets real silent. And then Ned is surprised that this direwolf lived long enough to give birth to the pups. And you remember what Hullen says?
Could have
Maybe
given birth when it was dead.
Yeah, like maybe these pups just like came out dead, born with the dead.
Worse luck.
So Rob wants to keep them. And what's his argument? Like, what's his plan?
We'll train them really well.
Well, no,
What about
there was
We'll milk them themselves.
there's a
ourselves.
perfect number
Before
for
that-
the family. It was
Well,
That's what John
John-
says.
John says
that's
after,
what works.
John says that after
Yeah, okay.
Rob doesn't work. Rob says like, oh, we can like use. There was another dog. that
There's
just gave
another
birth.
bitch that could milk them.
And Hullen or somebody says like, that dog will never let these direwolves milk off of her. That's ridiculous.
Those pups would tear those nipples up.
Nom 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 nom.
This is when John jumps in with the argument that I think Kyle just said.
Yeah.
Says Lord Stark, John said. It was strange to hear him call father that so formal. Bran looked at him with desperate hope. There are 5 pups, he told father. 3 male, 2 female. What of it, John? You have 5 true-born children, John said. 3 sons, 2 daughters. The direwolf is the sigil of your house. The children were meant to have these pups. Bran saw his father's face change, saw the other men exchange glances. He loved John with all his heart at that moment. Even at 7, Bran understood what his brother had done. So I think we talked about this last time too. And at the end of this chapter, John is riding away with a pup just like the rest of them.
Did he hide the other pup?
At this point, does John know there's a 6th pup and he like kicks some snow on top of it and he's like, oh look, there's only 5.
I don't think so. Also, you could say, hey man, you have 6 children. One's like white and fucking weird. Just
Yeah.
like me.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is like, I mean, it's a viable possibility, but I don't think it's what happened. Because why wouldn't you just say, well, then I'll take the 6th one, the weird one?
But it's also just also strange that like they're halfway across the bridge before John hears this thing. Like,
Yeah.
and
It's
nobody
also
else
a little
hears it?
weird.
Well, his
It's
eyes
also a
don't
little
miss
weird
much.
that the runt of the litter is the one. I mean, maybe it got pushed away from the nipple. I don't know if the
Yeah.
other ones were able to feed, so it's like, well, fuck it, I might as well go walk around, and that's how he got away. So
Yeah.
It says
And
its
Theon
eyes
says
are
that.
open, right? Like maybe it did start walking.
So basically, this sells it for him, and Ned's like, "All right, you got it, but Like, nobody's helping you with these pups. It's all on you. If they die,
You will train them, feed them, and if they die, you will bury them.
that's a show quote. That's not a book, but basically what he
It's
says
a
in
great
both
quote.
cases.
It is a good quote.
Basically what he says in both cases. He's like, yeah, you got nobody's helping out. Like, the kennel master isn't helping. And you will not neglect them. They'll rip your arm off. They're not like a normal dog. Like, you got to train them better than most dogs. And then it says the pups may die anyway, despite all you do. Rob says we won't let them die. And then he tells Jory and Desmond to grab the other pups and bring them back. And then this is when John hears the other wolf. And kind of what you were saying, Jeff, John says he must have crawled away from the others or been driven away, their father said, looking at the sixth pup. His fur was white where the rest of the litter was gray. His eyes were as red as the blood of the ragged man who had died that morning. Bran thought it curious that this pup alone would have opened its eyes while the others were still blind, like Glow said. An albino, Theon Greyjoy said with amusement. This one will die even faster than the others. Jon Snow gave his father's ward a long, chilling look. I think not, Greyjoy. This one belongs to me.
So I mean, it's possible that I guess that it was driven away because like they understand. I think probably the problems that being albino could bring to them. So
The pups? What
yeah,
what
like,
problems?
I mean, like albino animals, nature. It's never fair.
You're the
They
animal
never
guy.
fare as well as like regular stuff.
You think in a snowy environment, an albino wolf
True.
might do a little better.
That makes sense, but the red probably isn't good. The red eyes,
Yeah. So you've only read the next chapter, right, Kyle, up to Cat, or have you read the Danny one too?
I'm halfway into Danny.
All right, so we haven't seen any more of these pups later, but these pups are fan favorites going forward through the show.
And then they write him out of the show in season 8.
Yeah, CGI apparently got too crazy.
Too expensive.
Yeah, so and I think we probably covered it in the last episode, the prologue one, but just in case we talked about it a little bit in this episode that got lost. Kyle has never seen the show or read the books, but he knows a little bit of here and there. Some of the things that.
The unfortunate thing is, it's probably all the big stuff that I know.
Yeah.
But big stuff from the show that I know.
But what do they say? The devil's in the details. And as we go further in the books, I'm sure there'll be a lot more stuff we can get predictions on. Even if it's like stuff what happens, how we get there, and that kind of stuff. All right. With that, we're going to let Kyle go. And the second half of this podcast is going to be the spoiler talk with just Glow, myself, and Jeff. And again, sorry for any discontinuity. We're keeping the spoiler part that we recorded last time.
See you, Kyle.
Bye-bye.
Later.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
All right, we're back. Kyle is gone. Time to talk about spoilers for the first chapter of Game of Thrones, the Bran chapter. Again, I don't even know if we're going to call these spoilers because
It's just discussions
on stuff that happens in the later books that you wouldn't want to hear if this is your
If you
first
haven't
read
read,
them.
yeah. So it could be spoilers if you're still listening.
Yeah, so definitely get out if you haven't read them all. But let's get right into it. So
Yeah.
I'm going to start off with this. The first words of a Bran chapter are the morning. And so after a long night, Bran might be the morning.
or he's the Morning Throner.
Or he's the Morning Throne.
If
He's just
this
the part.
ends, if the book ends the same way the show does, Bran is the Throner because he's the king sitting on the throne. And his first words ever of his first chapter are the morning.
So he is the
It's
Morning
almost like we
Throner.
foresaw this.
Let's
Bran
go.
is the Morning Throners.
Are we foreshadowing? Are we
We might
foreshadowing
have
the whole
accidentally
ending?
foreshadowed everything.
We just know everything.
So, do you guys? Are you guys? So we're doing this reread. Are you guys going to be looking at Bran chapters
Differently?
in a different light now that we've seen the end of the show?
I think, you said it, like, I'm picking through everything he fucking says. Everything that happens is under a magnifying glass
I'm
now.
definitely gonna rewatch this. I'm not gonna sit down and rewatch the entire 75 episodes of the show in one weekend, right? But I'm gonna rewatch it over the next year. Or
I'm
whatever,
sure
right?
somebody's already accumulated a YouTube clip of just every Bran
Bran
scene,
moment.
and you'll be able to go back. I think it's it's kind of weird that, like you said, George had the vision of Bran and the direwolf pups, and that's kind of where the whole thing started. So
yeah,
from the beginning, he had some sort of crazy vision for what Bran was going to do. He was the guy that he thought of, not Jon Snow, not Daenerys. It came from Bran. So
yeah,
I think that tells us something, that Bran is a lot more important to George than maybe D&D played it off to be in season 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, and I'll definitely be looking at these chapters a little differently going forward, knowing what I know.
Well, I think it might start showing itself maybe in Winds and A Dream of Spring.
Yeah, that's the other thing is
Bran at this point, he has no aspiration for being a king.
Yeah, he's just a little kid with like some special powers on a journey, right? But he doesn't really become, at least in the books, he doesn't become, like, he doesn't hit his peak. He doesn't max level until he's three-eyed Raven.
Yeah. I mean, and to be fair, Bran never had visions of being king or even, Ward of the North or Warden of the North. He wanted to be a knight. All he wanted to be was a knight.
Mm-hmm. He wanted to be a Kingsguard, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Barristan Selmy was like one of his heroes. He was like really excited because when they're about to go down, when he hears that he's going to get to go to King's Landing with Bran, he's like, "Oh, can I meet Barristan Selmy?"
Yeah, it's not even like he had any aspirations to ever sit on a throne or to rule. He just wanted to kill people and protect something and just be a knight. It's kind of weird. His storyline right now, as long as he's not a weird ass fucking dude in a wheelchair in Winds of Winter and whatever the next book is.
Here's the thing is, people got so mad once Bran became the three-eyed Raven in the show, but in the books there's no way he can be that boring because we're going to get, I mean, I was going to say because we're going to get chapters from
POVs. Hopefully we still get POVs.
Which means he can't be, I was going to say which means he can't be that boring, but then I think about some cat chapters and I'm like, POVs can still be boring.
Sansa.
But we'll know it. We'll at least know his motivations.
Yeah.
Right. We'll know.
We'll know more into the mind.
We'll know what he's doing.
We'll know way more into the mind of the Three-Eyed Raven. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm freaking hyped to find out what happens with Bran. But let's talk about more this chapter specific. And the one main thing is the direwolf, right? So Garrett is the one who's getting his head cut off. There's really nothing spoilery in the first bit. That I can think of anything to talk about. It's the direwolf when they find the direwolf.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the one thing is, and again, Kyle says he knew this that Jon's a Targaryen. Again, maybe he is, maybe he's not. I think he kind of has to be based on.
Why would he not
everybody says that like when George pitched the show to, or when David and Dan pitched the show to George, that he asked them who's Jon Snow's mom, and they answered, and that's when he's like, okay, you can do the show, which makes you think, okay, they got it right.
But even like you said before, that all right, Lyanna Stark is his mom. That's not saying who the dad is.
That's true.
I mean, when you have 20 years to depict a book series, you're gonna create extra theories that aren't gonna really fit.
Exactly. So we'll see what happens, but he's probably a Targaryen, right? Which makes sense because the only thing early in this chapter that's kind of spoilery is Bran thinks how different Jon and Robb are. How different and the same. They look different, they kind of act different, but they're like, again, like we said last time, like earlier, they get to get along really well.
Right.
One of the things we talked about was how Jon and Robb, while they don't really see eye to eye, right? They kind of have opposing views on everything in this chapter, but they're still boys, right? We touched on that earlier. So if that doesn't make it in the reshoot, whatever.
It's also kind of curious that they, even though that they're opposing views, they both wanted the pups. Yeah.
Well, again, obviously, everybody wants pups.
Everybody wants a pup.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a...
If you don't want pups, just get the hell out of this.
All right, let's get into the meat of the...
So the meat of it, we get a direwolf south of the wall. And we touched on this part last time. How the fuck does this direwolf get down here? So there's a couple theories. One, it gets brought through the wall by somebody. Who could that be? Maybe Garrett, who we know just came through the wall, probably at the Night Fort. Maybe Cold Hands. If Cold Hands isn't Benjen, it just happens to be somebody else that we don't know about, which is, I guess, potentially a possibility.
And is that a warning sign? Is this really supposed to be a warning sign to the Stark family?
Yeah. Right? Like,
that's curious.
Not much. There's not many coincidences. This if you think about it, how many coincidences are there in Game of Thrones besides this one?
Dany is just gifted some dragon eggs.
The three kings die when the
the
leeches are put on the fire.
I'm gonna throw one thing out that I'm definitely gonna bring up multiple times throughout this podcast series. There's a thing that people I've heard on different like YouTube theories that when people have prophecies, there's a difference between like when Melisandre says, "Oh, 3 kings will die," and then she does, "This is gonna make 3 kings die." That's one thing if she honestly has magic powers that does that. But also, I almost believe that the only magic in this entire book could just be foresight, seeing the future. Right? Say Melisandre doesn't have any magic except seeing powers, seeing stuff that's gonna happen in the flames. If she sees Joffrey die, Greyjoy die, Balon Greyjoy, and Robb Stark die, if she sees all those in the flames and she's confident that's gonna happen, is it better to go tell Stannis, "Hey, these 3 kings are gonna die," or pretend you're the one behind it, you know?
Yeah.
If she knows it's gonna happen, it makes way more sense for her to be like, "Oh, I'll pretend I'm behind this so he has to trust me going forward." Right? It's almost like if you have foresight, you can make it seem like you have magic powers.
That's true. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. No, that makes sense for sure.
So it could be something like that is the only thing. I'm keep an eye out for that.
But she does have shadow babies, which are fucking weird. So,
yeah, she does have. Yeah, I'm not saying Melisandre doesn't have something going on. There's definitely something going on there, right? So at the very least, she sees the future in the flames. But I'm gonna take a very skeptical, especially because there's so little magic in this book. And one thing that George R. R. Martin is big on is, and this is what Kyle said he kind of has a complaint with because he likes fantasy. But George R. R. Martin does not like magic without sacrifice. He thinks that if you have wizards like Gandalf who can just cast spell, or like Harry Potter, right, who can just cast spells whenever they want, and there's not that many of them, right? If Melisandre is really one of the only people in Westeros with magic powers, then they win. They would be in charge. If it costs her nothing to do magic, then that's something. Yeah. But like the Shadow Baby, she says it drains Stannis.
Yeah. The blood.
Right,
magic
there's like kind of blood
of
magic type. It's like you're. There's always a sacrifice to whatever you're doing. The whole Drogo thing, right? Like death will pay for life, but what is life? It's never clear cut in this book. So I don't think it's good. I don't think it's easy to say that. Oh, a few leeches.
Yeah, a little bit of blood. So are we saying direwolf coincidence or sign to the Starks?
So that's the thing. I'm saying if we're looking at coincidences in Game of Thrones, there are none. Everything is.
How about the sex of the direwolf pups? 3 sons, 2 daughters.
So is it a coincidence, or is it somebody, Three-Eyed Raven, is behind this?
And he can control the pup's gender, and
or
that it's going to die on the path that they're returning back to Winterfell. How did they not see it? If they're traveling the same path back, why did not see it on the way there?
He can warg animals, first of all, so he can warg 2 animals at the same time. A direwolf and a stag. Have the stag kill the direwolf.
Yeah, dude.
And he could have found a direwolf with that 5 combination.
Is this the first sign that the Three-Eyed Raven gives to Bran?
Yeah, I think this is the Three-Eyed Raven trying to reach out to Bran from the very beginning.
Interesting.
In the first time you read this, you're just like, oh, they found direwolf pups, and it just happens to be that's.
He needed to get eyes on Bran.
And the person that kills Robert is the person who, or the animal that kills Robert, or that kills the fucking stag killing the direwolf is very symbolic of the Baratheons being the death of Ned Stark, the leader of this house, who gave birth to.
So, do we think that the Three-Eyed Raven is walking into these pups while?
So there's definitely parts throughout the books where the pups know things that the boys don't. Right? Grey Worm is very suspicious.
Grey Worm.
Grey Wind is very suspicious of
Jaime.
Jaime, Jane, the Westerlings when Robb marries, he's suspicious of like 2 of the cousins. He is not happy when they get to the Twin Towers of Frey, right?
Yeah.
Like Grey Worm knows that shit.
Grey Wind.
Shit. Doing the same thing Melisandre and Missandei.
Yeah, right?
Ghost, same thing. Ghost is acting up towards the end of book 5 when Jon's about to die, and even Melisandre is like, keep him around you, like that Ghost knows shit. You know? And the day that Jon gets stabbed, Ghost is going nuts. He's like barking at Bowen Marsh and Arthur Yarwick on the way out of the Lord Commander's.
Yeah,
you know?
That's definitely
he does not
interesting.
Bark. Get out of here.
He doesn't bark, but he's like, he's giving him evil eyes. So yeah, like, is it because the ghost or the wolves themselves know what's going on, or is it because Three-Eyed Raven kind of knows?
Does it all get back to Three-Eyed Raven? Yeah, that's interesting. Very interesting.
Again,
I definitely think the Three-Eyed Raven wargs into Ghost a lot.
Here's the thing. And this is what I just told Kyle, and it was kind of misleading. There's no magic in the first 3 books, really, right? We get some dragon stuff. There's not much magic. That's not true.
No.
We don't know, like, from an outside perspective, you don't think there's magic, but we find out at the end of book 4 that there's a mage Marwyn who has a glass candle that can influence dreams, and he's been working his magic this whole time. So anytime there's a dream sequence going forward, you have to imagine, is it the Three-Eyed Raven?
Somebody...
We know the Three-Eyed Raven can contact people in dreams.
Or is it anybody in a candle?
We know, yeah, exactly. We know Quaithe contacts Dany in a dream in Marine, and she says the glass candles are burning. So it's not a far stretch to think that that's how Quaithe is contacting Dany, the same way Marwyn is contacting Aemon and stuff.
And honestly, this is probably why George is having trouble finishing these books, because there's so many details, there's so many things that he has to pull in. You can't just walk away from the Citadel. I mean, Sam's still there, right, in the books?
Yeah.
So we got a lot more to do there. The prologue of the one book is dealing with Jaqen H'ghar killing people. Jaqen H'ghar is just not going to disappear like he did.
Jaqen H'ghar at the Citadel. Yeah, Marwyn's gone. Now Sam is with Jaqen H'ghar and fucking Oberyn Martell's bastard daughter.
We can't imagine.
Like, think about that. We got 3 awesome characters. We got Oberyn Martell's bastard daughter, Sorella. We got Jaqen H'ghar pretending to be Pate, and we got my boy Sam chilling together at the Citadel.
Yeah. Wait, I forget how is it Jaqen again?
Jaqen,
I haven't read the 4th book in forever.
In the prologue of book 1, it's all about this guy Pate, who's just kind of a dumbass at the Citadel who can't get a chain, but there's an inn nearby, and the owner of the inn says that whoever gives her a gold dragon can take the virginity of her daughter, and Pate has a crush on her daughter, so he's trying to get a gold dragon. A guy comes up to Pate, an alchemist, and tells Pate, hey, if you go steal this key, who Pate serves, I forget his name, but he serves the maester who's in charge of the rookery. And Jaqen, not the alchemist, tells Pate, if you get me the key that guy has, I'll give you a gold dragon. He gets the key at the very end of the prologue, gives it to the alchemist. The alchemist gives him the gold coin, and Pate thinks, I've never had a gold coin, but I know when you're supposed to bite it, or else like people won't think I'm legit. So he bites it and dies. We find out in one of the Arya chapters that the Faceless Men use poison coins. It's how she kills the insurance guy, right?
Yeah.
She slits a guy's purse who's about to go in to talk to him, drops all his coins, and takes one real one and drops one fake one because she knows the guy bites them all. So Faceless Men use poison coins. Jaqen H'ghar uses a poison coin on Pate. Pate dies. Then we see Pate in the epilogue, or in the last Sam chapter of the same book. Pate is alive, but we know he's not alive. So he got killed by a Faceless Man. The reason we know it's Jaqen, because the description of the alchemist, the guy who kills Pate, is the exact same face description as the one that he turns into as when he leaves Arya from Harrenhal.
Okay.
It's just like you.
I need to reread the book. So
you wouldn't catch that. Like, I don't think we would have caught that on a reread either. That's something that somebody was paying way closer attention. Like,
and Nelson was just telling me, like, you gotta know who Pate is. You gotta remember this epilogue. It's big. And I was like, okay. And then it ties in at the end of the book.
Yeah, when I read the prologue, I had no idea that Pate got killed by Jaqen. I thought he got killed by a random guy. But then at the end, once you're like, oh shit, Pate got killed, but he's alive here. How is that possible? And you go back and look at the description of the alchemist, and then look at the description of the guy who Jaqen changed into, they match. And you're like, oh, it makes sense now. But yeah, so like, again, we got really off topic there.
We pulled really far off topic.
There is just so much. So we know Quaithe. We don't know, but Quaithe is probably influencing dreams, right? we know Marwyn is influencing dreams for sure, and we got the Red Raven who can definitely influence dreams.
Yeah.
So then again, I'm just gonna point out one thing, not related to this chapter at all. There's a part where Jaime, I think it's in book 3, falls asleep and takes a nap while the moon is shining on him and his head is resting on a weirwood stump.
Yep. And
he has a dream about him and Brienne fighting with flaming swords. That is not prophecy, right? That is somebody influencing his dreams. I don't know if there's like, even the House of the Undying, is that Dany really foreseeing prophecy, or is that somebody directing Dany visions?
Yeah.
That's just something to keep an eye out for, because I know George R. R. Martin is not a fan of prophecy, but there seems to be a whole lot of prophecy in these books, and that's when you have to draw the line: prophecy versus like almost subliminal messaging.
Yeah, like known shit that's gonna happen.
Yeah. All right, so we kind of touched on that enough. Let's get back to the direwolf. Regardless of how the direwolf got there, I don't think it's coincidence. Something happened.
And then also the whole part of the stag and the Baratheon ties to it.
Yes. So this has to be, like, at the very least,
the biggest foreshadow in symbolism, foreshadowing in book 1.
Yes.
That Ned is going to die. And I'm surprised that Kyle, who says that he knows Ned dies in this book, didn't bring that up. And again, we lost this recording, but hopefully he doesn't bring that up in the next when we redo it.
Hopefully he fucking finds it in his deleted files, and
he just texted me. That's definitely not there. Sorry, I fucked that up. But yeah, so the one thing is like, and again, so it's gonna be tricky to not it's gonna be tricky, like when he brings stuff up that we don't want to spoil, right? So he says like Jory Cassell. Oh yeah, I knew who that was.
Yeah.
Again, this might not be in there.
How does he know who Jory?
There's no way. Jory Cassell dies in book 1. He dies in season 1.
And he definitely didn't watch that.
He didn't watch season 1. He only saw like episode 3 of season 8.
I think he was talking about Jorah Mormont.
He definitely was talking about somebody else, right? He thought Theon was Greyjoy. He thought Theon was Greywyn. Great.
Dude, shut the fuck up. Have another. He also brought up that Rob and the Red Wedding, so.
Yeah, but I don't.
He did figure that out.
But he kind of was like, he wasn't sure about it, but he's
not gonna know Cat dies.
Yeah.
Also, yeah.
And what happens after that?
We're gonna have to tread lightly around some spots.
Glow.
Right?
What?
You're lucky he knows that Jon Snow goes to the Wall, because you would have already spoiled that for him.
Yeah.
Oh God! 2 chapters later. Wow.
Whatever. It's just the fact that you have no self-control.
What it's gonna be. Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that you have no self-control is the problem.
Oh, Drogon's gonna die.
Nestor dies. Oh, I got that off my chest. Yeah. So we got that, and then the last thing is Jon and Ghost. Right. We kind of again. We'll. I'm sure this will be in the next re-record too, but. We've kind of brought up 2 theories for Kyle. One, Jon does hear Ghost, which seems kind of unlikely considering the amount of snow and how far he is from the wolf. 2, Jon knew Ghost was there the whole time, and just kind of played it off like he didn't. But I think the most likely is 3. Jon definitely has a warg connection with Ghost, and it's not that he hears Ghost, but that somehow there's
their connection. Their connection's already open.
Exactly, some type of telepathy.
That's why his eyes are open.
That's why Ghost's eyes are open first. Yeah, exactly. And then, especially, this is something that we didn't bring up because of Kyle, and I'm glad. I really thought this was going to be something Glow brought up. Ghost does not make noise, right? So the fact that he heard Ghost is ridiculous. And I thought you were going to point that out when I was like, yeah, he hears Ghost. I thought you were going to be like, oh yeah, but Ghost is silent. That's the kind of shit you're scaring me for, Glow.
That's not a big thing either, though.
It is pretty important.
They bring it up throughout. It's not like a spoiler.
Stuff that is brought up throughout the books tends to be important.
Is Ghost really a mutant? Or it's said a lot of times he makes no
silent.
Alright, do we want to make any parallels to the others walking silently and Ghost walking silently?
Yeah. I was thinking about that too, reading these back to back, right? He kind of looks like it too. He's white, he's pale white, the others are pale white.
Yeah.
He has red eyes, they have blue eyes. Like bright red eyes, bright blue eyes.
It's kind of curious that
he
moves silent.
Well, so it's almost like the same, but like he's almost the enemy since he has red eyes, though. So that's why I think he's sent from the old gods, Ghost particularly.
And here's my thought: if his again, maybe I'm reading way too far into it, but kind of like what Jeff said, it's a crazy coincidence that because even if the three-eyed raven does have the power to get a dire wolf who's pregnant south of the wall, you can't predict that the genders are going to work out.
Right.
But Ghost, the fact that his eyes are open kind of makes me, and again, this might be too far into it and just a wild theory. Is he of a different litter? Did he get brought there completely different? Which is kind of like John, right? John has a completely different family. He was just brought along because he belongs with them.
It's pretty.
It's far fetched, but if we're going down the path that it's a possibility that Three-Eyed Raven set all this up and staged a fight between a direwolf and a stag.
I mean, then it's possible that the Three-Eyed Raven just worked in the Ghost and made sure that Ghost was able to keep up with this.
Yeah, and like
big wolf
there's a pregnant wolf who's carrying Ghost from a different litter or something like that, right? Not crazy. Well, it's crazy. Definitely crazy, but not out of the realm of possibility.
Nothing is really shut on the Three-Eyed Raven and what he's capable of in the book.
Yeah, dude, I'm so excited for Winds of Winter. God damn it, George, figure it out. Yeah. Besides that, not much. We get early on Theon being an asshole. Just the one thing,
John's the pack leader.
Yeah. And George is great. I've heard a lot of people say this. George is great about about getting his readers to really want something for somebody.
Yeah.
Right? You really fucking want Theon to get his due. And then Theon gets his due, and it's just like way too much. You're like, I wanted him to like get his balls chopped off and then set free. Like, not this. This is too much.
Yeah.
You know? And stuff like that happens like every once in a while. You're like, Sansa's kind of bratty. I wish somebody would just put her in her place. And then she gets stuck with Joffrey, and you're like, not like that though. That's kind of rough, you know. He's like George like sets you up to want something and then just gives you 100 times more, and you're like, okay, that was a little overdone.
That's pretty cool. I never thought of that.
It really makes you think about what gets George off. We talked about it
again. I don't think it's that. I think he's just a great author.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a crazy mind. The way that he's thinking this whole thing through. Just think about the room that he wrote this story in, and the plots that he had, or like he is thinking in advance. He has to be so far. You know what I mean? Yeah. He had the end in mind, or I guess he also said that it's not like a detailed roadmap. He's just kind of figuring out his way, but he still knows where he's going, and that's crazy.
Yeah, he needs to have like crazy point. Like he needs major plot points to be aiming for.
Yeah. So let's us real quick make some predictions of what we think Kyle's gonna think for the next, in the short term, first quarter of Game of Thrones. You think he's gonna get hooked? Because he did tell us that he's when he's into fantasy stuff, he's kind of into like heavy fantasy, like with lots of magic and.
I think he'll get hooked because there's a lot of conspiracy coming up with the Lannisters and the Aarons and murder and who killed who and what's the whole story behind it. So there's definitely a story where you're like, oh shit, like what's happening next? What's the next point of view?
Exactly. And Ned dying, while a shock, definitely isn't the main point of this book.
Not at all. Right? It's just another cog in the wheel of Peter Baelish, really.
Yeah.
When you think about the main story.
And is it even like, did Peter want Ned? Like, again, we'll get into all this later, but is that what Peter wants? Like, it almost works out better. I don't know.
I mean, he definitely was doing everything he could.
He wanted a war between the Starks and Lannisters.
And he wanted Catelyn at the end. If he could take Catelyn at the end, he's not taking Catelyn without Ned dead.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I'm excited for this reread. Again, these chapters, we re-recorded them. We recorded this one time before we decided to get a fresh perspective with somebody who hasn't read. And brought Kyle on. So this is our second time recording, and we're going to have to record it for the third time. And again, there's not much going on. So as people who already know everything, this is kind of slow for us. But I'm pretty sure, like, by the end of this book, into book 2, we're gonna be rolling, and I think Kyle will be rolling too.
Well, dude, I started reading a couple more of the chapters, and like, I was like, fuck, man, I want to keep reading.
Yeah, I know. That's what Kyle said. Because right now, at the time of this recording, we haven't even put out our Season 8 recap or the last watch, and we still have 6 episodes after that before this come out on the Night of the Seven Kingdoms. So we're kind of recording way ahead, and I didn't think we were going to record this early, but Kyle, when he agreed to come on, he got the book and read the first 2 chapters, and he was like, okay, you told me I can only read 2 at a time. can we record this so I can keep reading? And I was like, we can. We'll be building the backlog until we catch up. But yeah, he's excited to go. And I am too. I fucking love these books. This is like my 4th or 5th time through them, including like listens on audiobook. So I'm fired up. And I'm really, again, we're technically recording this before we recorded The Night of Seven Kingdoms. You guys will have already heard those if you're listening to this, but I'm really excited to see what you guys think of those. Those are awesome short stories.
Yeah, I ordered it today. Should be coming tomorrow.
Can I start reading them, Nelson?
Yeah, read them now. I think we should. You think you're going to get yours tomorrow, Glow?
Yeah. I'll try to read it this weekend.
Okay, cool. So I'll pick a page. There's a page I know. I'll tell you guys, and that's where we'll read to and stop. We'll record and then read again.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us for the spoiler part of this episode. We'll see you guys next time in the cat episode.
Don't forget to like us on Spotify, YouTube, and Twitter.
Sorry for getting way off topic at times, but that's just how much we dive into it. So if you want to dive in with some crazy theories that you have, enlighten us a little bit.
Send it to us on Twitter, comment on YouTube, or I don't know if you can comment on Spotify, but figure it out. Get it to us, we'll respond.
There we go. Find a way to win. We'll see you.
The night is dark and full of terrors.